The Democrat Party could be facing a disaster in the Commonwealth of Virginia. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because we have breaking news out of the Commonwealth of Virginia, because we finally have confirmation as to who's going to be on the ballot in the Commonwealth. And there's been much speculation as to who's going to be on the ballot, who's been kicked off the ballot, all of that. Well, finally, we have official word as to who made it, and it is bad news for Democrats. Look at this. Oliver Chase of the Libertarian Party, Jill Stein of the Green Party, Cornel West, Claudia de la Cruz. All four of these candidates officially made the ballot in Virginia. And for those that don't know, all four of them lean heavily to the left, especially the last three. Like Oliver Chase, yes, he's running as a libertarian, but even for libertarian standards, he's to the left. As for the other three, well, look at Jill Stein. She's running for the Green Party. Cornel West, we all know, yeah, he's to the left. And Claudia de la Cruz, for those that don't know, she is the communist candidate. I'm not even kidding. She is running under the Socialist and Liberation Party or whatever. In other words, she is running as an open socialist, communist, whatever you want to call it. Either way, that's four candidates that lean to the left. Even Oliver Chase, excuse me, he's to the left of the average libertarian. All four of them are going to be on the ballot in Virginia. A state that most of us thought beforehand was not that competitive. I mean, back in 2020, Biden won it by over 10 points. And yes, we expected some reversion here and there, but before 2024, no one really thought that Trump was going to be competitive in Virginia. Well, before this news dropped, look at the polls. Right now, it's only Harris +4 in Virginia. Yeah, and that's head-to-head. Harris +4. You have other polls showing the same thing. It's not just one pollster. Roanoke College, Harris +3. Qantas polls, they had like Harris +3, excuse me. You're talking about multiple polls. Even the New York Times, and I know this was before Biden dropped out, but still, they found it Harris +5. These numbers are absolutely pathetic, especially for a Democrat in Virginia. You should be up by, at a bare minimum, 6 to 7 points. Like, you should be up by that much. Not by, oh yeah, we're up by 2, we're up by 3, we're up by maybe 4 points. And that's not including the third-party candidates. Now, I should be clear that we really don't have much polling in Virginia outside of like 2 or 3 pollsters, so this number could be completely different. We haven't had any polls since RFK dropped out. But look at this. Trump was down by roughly 3.5 points. Okay, 3.5. Let's just round up and say 4. He was down by 4 points in Virginia when you included RFK, Cornel West, Jill Stein, everyone else. Well, RFK was getting 6% of the vote, 7%. Now, does that mean every single RFK voter is going to break for Trump? No, but I really believe, especially for the fact that his name's not even on the ballot, I believe that you can assume that 70 to 80% of RFK voters in Virginia, they're probably voting for Trump. So let's just say right now, Trump's at 45%. When you include other third-party candidates, right now, he's at 45%. And let's say a very small chunk goes to Harris. Like, let's just say 10% or whatever. Well, in that scenario, if you just average it all out, you just do basic math, I'm not saying this is a prediction, just with RFK off the ballot in a 5-way race, if RFK supporters break for Trump that much, which they may not, fine, but let's just say it happens. In that scenario, Trump would be beating Harris in Virginia. That's not a misquote. That's a fact. I mean, Trump was getting 40 to 41% with RFK on the ballot. But now, he's off the ballot, he endorsed Trump. Hell, he's actively campaigning for him. And we know for a fact, his supporters are going to break for Trump by a lot. Again, that doesn't mean every single one of them will break for Trump. But you see the problem here for Harris? Her supporters that she lost from the head-to-head, they didn't go to RFK. most of them went to Cornel West. They went to Jill Stein. And they're going to be on the ballot in Virginia. Start to do some basic math. You include the fact that Claudia de la Cruz, she's not going to get, 1%. She may get, 0.25%. But those voters are like 99.9% Democrat. Same thing with Cornel West, Jill Stein. Hell, probably Oliver Chase. I mean, the guy is a left-leaning libertarian, and Trump has made a big pivot to winning over libertarian-like voters. So you can make the argument that you have 4 candidates that lean to the left or at the bare minimum take votes away from Harris, all on the ballot, without a right-leaning independent on the ballot. Yeah, there's not a single one. This might be the first time in a while that we haven't seen a single right-leaning third-party candidate on virtually any ballot, let alone in Virginia, which it's a Democrat-leaning state. But when Harris is already polling at, +4, which is pathetic, but when you factor in she was only at 44% when you included West and Stein and others, well, suddenly, this becomes a big deal. Because beforehand, Trump was doing better in Virginia. No matter how you try to spin it, it's a fact. He was doing like 3 to 4 points better, at the bare minimum, better in Virginia. Now, that doesn't mean he was going to flip the state, but, it was good enough to, make it within like 5 maybe within 6, but nothing else. But the polls actually showed it was much more Republican than expected. And now you have these 4 candidates on the ballot taking votes away from Harris. Now, this doesn't mean that Trump's gonna win Virginia, but the chance of it actually happening has gone up dramatically. That doesn't mean I predict it's gonna happen, but if you're the Harris campaign, you should probably be sweating just a little bit because, well, you have 4 left-leaning independents on the ballot that they're gonna take votes away from you, not from Trump, in a state that you're only up by, let's just say 4 points in, and when you include RFK endorsing Trump and backing him and off the ballot, Trump's probably up in the polling. If you factor in all of that, that doesn't mean I think that's going to happen, but that's just basic math. That's a possibility. That's a plausible scenario where, wait a minute, if the stars align, the idea of Trump winning Virginia might not be as crazy as some would expect. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if Harris is only at 44%, and she's probably a little bit higher, but you have to assume Trump is also, with undecideds, breaking. But even then, with RFK backing Trump and the vast majority of his supporters going to Trump, and now you have to deal with 4 left-leaning independents like this on the ballot, well, it becomes a problem. Now, we gotta go over Virginia because this is a big deal. Like, we're not talking about, a small state that's worth nothing. No. Virginia's worth 13 electoral votes. It's a state that if Trump could somehow pull off the upset in it, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if by some miracle he actually flips Virginia, the map completely changes, not just for this cycle, but for the next 20 years. Because for years now, Virginia was a Democrat state. And when you have a Democrat, the pathways for Trump, there's a lot of them, but you have to win Georgia, Pennsylvania, and that's the easiest scenario, all right? There's a bunch of other ones, but if you somehow flip Virginia, let's just say by some miracle you flip Virginia, in that scenario, you open up so many different pathways. Like, for starters, you're probably winning Georgia, Pennsylvania anyways, for sure. I mean, probably every swing state. If you're up in Virginia, why would you be down in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania? But let's just say, fine, those other states, they're very competitive. Well, in this scenario, Trump would have to win Michigan and Wisconsin, which I'm not saying is going to happen, but you see why this is a big deal? Without Virginia, well, Trump could win Wisconsin and Michigan, but still lose the election. Or another example is Wisconsin and Arizona, which I think he's going to do good in both states, but let's just say he wins both. He still needs to win a bigger state like Michigan, like Pennsylvania, like Georgia. Well, let's say by some miracle, he loses Michigan and Pennsylvania. And let's say he's down in Nevada. Or, yeah, it doesn't really matter, but let's say he's losing Nevada. Well, he has to win one other state. Just one. either Virginia and Georgia. Now, obviously, Georgia's the easier state to win, but if you somehow lose Georgia, well, you might be in deep trouble if Virginia was safe Democrat. But if by some miracle you flipped it, well, look at that. 269, 269. Now, this is not an official prediction. This is so unlikely that I don't think it's even possible, at least for now. But it opens up a bunch of pathways for Trump, and it makes Harris's re-election prospects, I would say, all but dead. Because at this point, not only do you have to defend all these swing states, you now have to defend Virginia. And if you lose Virginia by some miracle, well, Trump has to win 2 other states and that's it. He's got the presidency. So you have to defend everything else. You have to run the table, because if you're winning Virginia, you're probably up in Georgia. At this point, she has to win everything else. She can't even afford to lose Nevada, because look at that, 270. See the problem? You see why this is a big deal? Even though it's very unlikely, it's still a possibility now, especially with Cornel West, Jill Stein, Oliver Chase, De La Cruz, all of them being on the ballot. Yeah, they're not getting, 30% of the vote each, but if they all get, 1 to 2%, and De La Cruz probably gets like a 0.5%, but let's just say that's roughly the combined in total for like 5 to 6% of the vote. They're all left-leaning voters, and at that point, Trump's actually in a very good situation in Virginia. Again, this is not an official prediction. I am not saying Trump is going to win Virginia in a historical upset. But it would be crazy to deny that this is a big deal, because we don't have a constitutional party. We don't have a reform party on the ballot. It's just libertarian, green, independent, and those other independents, they lean to the left. In the Libertarian Party, we know for a fact the Trump campaign has been trying to make good gains with those voters, and a lot of them are not happy with Oliver Chase. So just do some math. Who are these people, who are these candidates appealing to? Who? Kamala Harris supporters or would-be supporters. That's the problem here. You do all the math, again, not a prediction. You just do basic math and you realize this could be the difference between a Trump win in Virginia or a Harris win, which would completely change the ball game, not just this cycle, but for like the next 20 years. That's why this is significant. We just got to see what happens, because there's a possibility that nothing happens and all 4 candidates get, 0.1% of the vote. But if the war in Israel doesn't end soon, well, that might be an issue that costs Harris a lot of support in a place like Virginia, especially with 4 candidates that are getting those voters that are pro-Palestine, they're anti-Israel, the Democrat voters that should be voting for Harris, but they're not. Either way, we just got to see what happens. There's a possibility that nothing happens and by some miracle, Harris is up by 15 points next month. It's possible, I get that. But right now, I don't see how you could argue that Virginia's safe Democrat at this point. I'm not saying Trump's going to win it, but to say it's for sure going Harris at this point, I don't think that's the case. Yeah, she's the favorite, but if she's only up by 3 to 4 points and now you have to deal with 4 left-leaning independents, that's a big problem for her. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.